All right, good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is in good health today. Okay, so first of all, good evening, and let's do a quick check to make sure that everyone can hear me clearly and can also see the share of the screen that's up right now. So let me know if you can hear me. You can
Yes,
type
we
it in the
can.
chat. All right, good. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so good evening and welcome to webinar 3 of the OECS Full Innovative Tools series, our Learning Hub Professional Development webinar series, where we look at some of the various tools and have been looking at some of the various tools within the OECS Learning Hub. I am Crendon Bissett, Technical Specialist at the OECS EDMU, Education Development and Management Unit. And with me tonight, we have some of our faces who are familiar to you if you've been following the first two webinars. We have Tennille James, who is a senior education. Tennille, give me the proper title.
Curriculum
I know that
support
it's
officer,
Curriculum
CSO.
Support Officer, yes, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We also have with us Mr. Kishon Paul. Kishon, just say a quick hi, if you can, from Grenada. Um, we also have Mr. Jonel Mitchell, who was one of our presenters in the last series, the last webinar, who's also with us. So I know that he may not be able to participate as fully as he did the last time, but I think he might be able to say a quick hello. I think so.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you
All
back again
right.
for your another webinar.
Okay. And also among my panel, the panelists, though he's not playing a very active role tonight, I know he may be indisposed, but he's definitely listening in. We have Mr. Royston Emmanuel is also there. Royston, if you can, say hi. If not, we know you're definitely listening on.
Hi, folks. I am definitely listening on.
All right. Thank you, Royston. Okay, so we're back, and let me first apologize for things do happen. Life happens, technical difficulties happen, life happens, illness happens, various things happen. And because of this, because of some situations outside of our control, we had to move or postpone our webinar from last week, from the 21st, over to tonight. And I know that there are a few things happening, additional things happening tonight. Um, but we know that in some ways the show must go on, and we always will have our recordings to support so that you can always follow some of the content and some of the things that we're looking at tonight. Now, what are we looking at this evening? This evening, we're looking at the OECS H5P Content Creator, and that is a platform on the OECS Learning Hub, connected to the OECS Learning Hub, that allows any teacher to be able to build or design or build interactive digital learning resources that are aligned to the OHPC curriculum. Not just only aligned to the OHPC curriculum, but it allows any teacher to build a number of different types of content, whether they're aligned to the OHPC curriculum or not. So a few notes before we begin. Your microphones are muted automatically. If you do have a question, you can use the Zoom chat for questions. We will have an open live Q&A towards the end as usual. And also this session is being recorded and it will be shared with all of you, our registered participants. If you have colleagues who may wish to attend this webinar and have not registered, we do have the registration form for webinar 3. I am going to share it in the chat right now, so you could send it to your peers in case they have not registered. Okay, so I think that takes care of our housekeeping matters. So going back to our presentation, what are our objectives this evening? So our objectives are basically to equip you, educators and education-minded persons, with the knowledge and skills that are needed to effectively navigate and utilize the H5P Content Creator. We are going to endeavor to give you the skills to develop, to integrate, to share your interactive digital resources for use in your classroom. And in so doing, you will also be creating or adding to a pool of usable open educational resources for the region. And that is one of the most important things that we want to highlight. And that's one of the functions that the content creator was created for. It was created to allow for all of you educators within the region to be able to create and add to a content pool, a pool of contextual, relevant content, regional content that can be used within classrooms. So this evening, we don't have a very packed agenda, but we do have to be mindful of the time. So what are we looking at tonight? We're looking at, first of all, quality standards. Why planning your content before you actually develop the content actually matters. Over the Easter break, we were actually having some member states were actually running their content creation sprints across a few member states. Teachers sat down, they opened the platform and they built content. But what we found is that some of the strongest content, some of the most interesting content were when teachers were able to sit down and plan their content beforehand. Okay, so we'll be looking at our quality standards, what quality means, not in a restrictive sense, but in terms of planning your content. We will look at the types of content that can be created. So we have a few of them, quite a few of them, 10 actually, but we're not going to be looking at all 10 this evening. Time would not permit that. And I may choose to integrate number 2 and number 3, an introduction to the H5P content maker. So in that introduction, I may actually choose to just speak about the 10 types of content. Then we'll have a little bit of a demonstration where myself and my colleague, Keyshawn Paul, will go through not all 10, but four of the interesting types of content that you can create on the content creator. And then we have 2 teachers from the region who have agreed to give us a short 2 or 3 minute walkthrough, 2 pieces of content, that one each, that they've been able to create using the content creator themselves. And then we can move into some Q&A. Okay? So without any further ado, I'm going to call up to the floor Mr. Neil James from SVG, so that we can begin to talk about quality standards, why planning matters when we're talking about creating content. Daniel, are you ready?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. As indicated before, my name is Taniel James. I am the Curriculum Support Officer for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want us to start off by carrying out a quick poll. Show of hands or thumbs up if you love learning about theoretical and foundational concepts. So again, show of hands or thumbs up if you love learning about theoretical and foundational concepts. That's a lot. Now, if you're the complete opposite, again, show of hands or type in the chat. Guilty. No, I am definitely guilty of this. I will admit that, however, that some concepts did manage to stick with me over the years. And one such is Robert Slavin's. For those of us in education, we're quite familiar with Slavin and his viewpoint of a good teacher. And one of the things, along with a host of characteristics that he would have described a good teacher to be, is one that is intentional. And this has really resonated with me and continues to shape how I approach my work as an educator. Now, where is she going with this? You're probably asking yourself. Don't worry, I'm not going to break out into a full-scale theory or academic lecture. The point I want to make is that as educators, we should at all times strive to be intentional, whether it is intentional about our lesson planning, our goals, and even our downtime. And I am drawing here from all the conversations around mental health. We must indeed strive to be intentional. So for the next minute or two, I want us to focus on how we can be intentional in an area we often overlook, and that is planning the resources we use to teach. If you're anything like me, when it comes to creating content, most times, the instinct or the first inclination is often to just open up a platform, whether it is Kahoot, any of the tools on the OECS Learning Hub, and start building whatever comes to mind. The result, sometimes our resources are technically sound, yes, but they lack the curriculum depth. Sometimes they're not as cultural relevant as we expect or as we hope them to be, or meaningful or have that meaningful impact that we're aiming for. So this is where the DOHPC Content Development Planner comes in. It is a tool developed to help organize our ideas and build more effective digital content. It is divided into three main areas. The first of which is foundation and alignment, 2, the learning need, and 3, inclusivity check. Now, could we just spend one second or two just indicated in the chat, what do you think each of these sections might entail? So foundation and alignment, what do you think will be required there in terms of you planning as a teacher to create a resource? What about the learning need? And inclusivity check, sorry. So we can just comment in our chat.
I'm just making sure that everyone can type in the chat, but please let me know if I see some hands. So hold on, let me. I'm not seeing anything in the chat as yet.
Oh, so they may not be able to do so. Okay, so I can just move on in the interest of time. So let's go through at the different sections. So foundational alignment. This section ensures that every resource is grounded in the curriculum. So our teachers here will have to specify the subject, the grade level, and directly link the content to expected learning outcomes, as well as the ELOs and specific curriculum outcomes from the OHPC curriculum. Under the learning need, here teachers will be required or expected to identify the specific learning gap the resource will address. They will describe what students typically struggle with, provide evidence like observations or test results, and complete a needs statement to clarify exactly how the resource will help students overcome that obstacle. Now, I know that is a mouthful, so I'll go that over again. This component is essentially, and I go that over again because this component is one of the main things or important things about this planning process. Here, you are identifying the specific challenge that your students are having. And as you identify these challenges, you are being encouraged as well to give evidence as to what these challenges are. And in doing so, you will then complete a needs statement to clarify exactly how the resource helps students overcome that obstacle. And finally, the final section ensures the resource is accessible and relevant to all students. And that section is the inclusivity check. So it prompts teachers to use Caribbean context, to think about the Caribbean context. And this would include thinking about how the resource supports diverse learners. So you might want to consider audio, visuals, or differentiated levels. And it also helps us to consider or confirm rather the resource works on typical classroom devices and internet speed. So again, we're looking at the classroom context. What resource or is typical for your classroom. And here you have to consider, do students have enough devices? What about the internet speed? So all of these things will factor in while you are planning to develop your resource. Now, if you think you'll give this tool a try, I would like you to just drop a thumbs up or again, share your thoughts in the chat, but I realize that you cannot share your thoughts in the chat at the moment, so forgive me.
You can in the Q&A. There's a Q&A, question and answer area that they should be able to type in. So
Perfect.
they should be able to do that.
Okay. So to wrap up, this planning tool is a simple one, but it's very powerful as it will help ensure that our digital content isn't just good, it is intentional, it is effective, it is impactful, and most importantly, it helps to engage students and helps to ensure that we are actually improving student outcomes and their performance. So I would like to end by strongly encouraging you to give it a try. I believe Clendon is going to place it in a link to the resource in the chat. Thank you for listening. And remember, planning isn't just for lessons, it's for the resources that you create too. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sunil. So like I indicated, while you may not be able to type fully in the chat, there is a question and answer feature. I'm not sure from your view where you would find it, but I know that it's there within your controls at the bottom. And also, the tool that Sunil was speaking about is nothing more than a document that was created in order to allow persons to think deeply about the kind of content that they're creating. And the three areas she spoke about were the foundation and alignment, the learning need, and inclusivity check. So this document, I dropped it in the chat. So let me know if you're able to accept it to get it by just dropping a thumbs up. And once you have it, you can then use it to be able to think. What's the word that you used, Tanil, to think intentionally about every piece of content that you create. So it's not a prescription, but it's something that can definitely help. So that document is in the chat. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's move into the next section where I am going to lead you into the OECS Content Creator and its various tools. Just taking a look at the time, we're at 6:21. So let's see if we can move as quick as possible through this section. So the OECS content, let me just back up a little bit here. All right, so there are two ways in which you can access the OECS Content Creator. One of the first ways is via the OECS Learning Hub. So our OECS Learning Hub, once you logged in, you have the Innovative Tools link at the top. And this Innovative Tools link at the top, once you click on it, you are then able to go all the way down to the bottom to where you see Content Maker. And clicking on this will open up the OECS Content Creator. You're also able to access the OECS Content Creator by going directly to its link, which is in the chat, which is creator.oecslearninghub.org. Okay? Now, currently, you will notice that you do have to log into the Content Creator. You are able to access you do have to log into the Content Creator. Eventually what we're aiming to have is that, you can log into the OECS Learning Hub and have access to all of its various tools. You will notice that some tools ask you to log in again. And so we'll be looking to streamline that and make it so that you wouldn't necessarily have to be logging in each time. But for now, the login or the registration process should be very, familiar to anyone who has signed in or registered or logged into a web-based platform. So if you click on login, you will then be seeing a screen that looks familiar to you if you log into the OECS Learning Hub regularly, which asks you to log in by continuing with Google or continuing with Microsoft. Additionally, if you did not or don't want to use your Google account or Microsoft account, and you registered with an email and password, then you can put in your email and password to log in. Registering is pretty much the same. You can sign up with your Google account or with your Microsoft account, and then you can put in your full name, email, password, role, and your institution. Now, you can always fill in those components later after you have created an account, but once you've created an account, you will have access to all of the tools on the OECS Content Creator. So once you've signed in, what you're going to be faced with is your dashboard. Now, I'm not going to jump straight into the content creation tools yet. I want to show you the full picture first because what you're looking at is not just a tool for building activities and building content. It's actually a complete teaching environment. So this is your teacher dashboard. And on the left here, you have your navigation menu. Okay? You may see some links here that would not show on your dashboard because I'm an admin, so there would be some links here like admin dashboard, you will not be able to see that. But most of the other links here are useful for one thing or another. So the first one you will see is My Classes, and this is where you can organize your students into class groups. Now, you can have as many classes as you need. You can create a grade 5A, grade 5B. You can create a grade 3 science group, whatever works for you and how you teach. Now, you can add, once you create a class, and I'm going to go here and just create a class. I'm going to call this class webinar class very quickly. And once you create a class, you can give it a subject area. For my sake, I'm going to say multiple subjects. Wouldn't make much of a difference. And I'm just going to put in a grade. I'm going to say grade 4. And I'm going to hit create. Now, you can add students to your classroom individually, but in a couple ways. So I can go here and I can click view enrollments, and I can add students individually, or I can add them in bulk, okay? Now, if I wanted to add a student and I know that a student currently exists, I can enter that student's email address and search for that student. If I wanted to create a new student, I could actually go here, type in a first name, last name, and email address for that student, and then create and enroll that student. In my case, I already have 2 students that I've created, so I'm going to see if I can find them. Okay, and I'm going to search. Oh, email address, sorry. So I'm going to search, and I've found my student, and I can enroll my student. I can also search for another student that I've created. gmail.com, and I can search for my student, and I have my student here. So I have 2 students, Marcus Joseph and Aisha Charles, who I have added in and into my class as enrolled students. So I can then close this, okay? In addition, you also have a bulk upload feature up here. Bulk upload is a pretty typical feature with many web-based applications for education. Just keep in mind that when you download the template, keep in mind to the formatting of the template so that when you put the information into the template, you don't have any errors when you're uploading, okay? So with that in mind, once I click view enrollments, I have my class. Okay, I have 2 students enrolled and ready. Now we can go back to our home and we can look at another feature. Now, another feature we have here is our gradebook. Okay, our gradebook will show when it's an important feature for showing our assignments and the results for our assignments. Now, an important distinction is that there's only 2 content types that generate actual scores, okay? But you will be able to see progress for a lot of the other content. So the quiz and the interactive video, when it has graded hotspots, okay, you will be able to see a result for that. So, but every other content type, like fill in the blanks and so on, shows completion percentages. Okay, so your scores will tell you how well a student understood the content, and the completion will tell you whether they engaged with it all. So just for the sake of example, I can go back to my dashboard, and I have some pre-created content here. So let's say, and we'll look at creating some of these types of content in a minute, but let's say I wanted to assign this quiz to my class for doing. You notice that I have an icon here where I can click on it. It looks like 2 persons, like multiple persons or a group. I can choose a class, which is my webinar class. I can set a due date, any additional instructions. I can also assign it to an individual student if I only want that one student to do that assignment or to do that activity. And then I can assign it to the class. So once I've assigned it to the class and I click close, when I go over to my gradebook, what you will see, and it's showing 80% here because in my testing previously, Aisha had already done the exercise. So me relinking it to my class that she's in just pulls back the information. So that's actually pretty useful because it means that if you maybe deleted a student or if you deleted a class accidentally and you re-added the class and uploaded the individual assignments, it actually picks it up again. So what you will see here is exactly what I was talking about, where Aisha's quiz had already been done. She got 4 out of 5, and 80% was the grade that she got. Marcus has not done the quiz, so that's why you see this dash here. So every activity that you add to your class actually is going to give you that, that entry in your gradebook. Okay? Other pages you may have is your analytics, where you are going to not just see what score a student got, but you can actually see how they got there. Okay, so if I go to the grade 3 mathematics quiz, okay, or I go down here, I can look for my grade 3 mathematics, I can click analytics, I can look at particular learners, I can look at some analytics for them, the questions, which questions they got wrong, their general performance, their score distributions, etc., and so on, based on their number of attempts. So all of this information is actually available in your analytics. Okay? So this question by question breakdown, and you can see exactly which questions students got wrong, etc., and so on. And finally, you have your learning paths. And in your learning paths, you're able to sequence your content into a structured journey for students rather than assigning 5 separate activities and hoping that the students do them in the right order. So what you can actually do is create a path, and you can actually add content to that path, and then you can assign it to a class if you wish. And whatever you assign to a class is going to be available for students to do. So a learning path is just as the name says, use a particular bunch of content that you want students to be able to do in a particular order, so you could build a path for students to follow it step by step. Okay? So if you want them to finish the interactive video before they access a flashcard, then you can actually build it into the path in that order. All right? Now, one of the things you will notice is that you will see a shared resources area on the side here. Now, what is this shared resources? Remember earlier on, I said that when you're creating content and you share that content, you are actually adding it or sharing it to a general community library where every teacher can, across the region, who has made the content public, you can find that content here, you can preview it, you can share it directly with your students, you can preview this grade 5. Okay, you can preview it, you can add it to your own content. You can say copy to my content, and it will actually bring itself into your dashboard, and you can actually reuse it, remix it, recreate, or whatever you wish to do with it. Okay? How are we doing so far? Let me go into... So if you have any questions so far, you can just type them into the chat, and we will look at answering some of those questions when we get to Q&A. All right, so looking at our time, let's get into looking at our content types. And I mentioned a few content types as I was going along, but I know some of those content types might actually be, some of you may not actually know what those content types are. Now, for the sake of speaking about them, I usually categorize them into a couple of tiers, T-I-E-R, tiers or levels. So for me, and that's Clendon's personal opinion, in tier 1, we have those quick build content types. So these that I consider to be in tier 1, these 4 are fast to build, they're very familiar to teachers, and they're directly usable in any classroom. So if a teacher has never used this platform before, these would probably be the first ones that they would start with. And which 4 am I talking about? First of all, a quiz. So students can answer questions and get instant scored feedback. Now, question types in quizzes can be multiple choice, true or false, fill in the blank, ordering, and drag and drop questions. So you can choose which kinds of questions that you want to create. Okay. The next quick type is our flashcard. Now, what is a flashcard? A flashcard is a student's digital flip card. So you may have content on one side. Let's say you have a definition or an image on one side and a definition on the other, or a term on one side or a definition and the image on another side. So if you want to give students a package for them to be able to get familiar with a set of terminology or terms, they can actually use the flashcard, where you can actually create a set of digital, like some of us who used to study back in the day, we used to use index cards. So it can always also be something like that. Then we have fill in the blanks, which is exactly what the name says, fill in the blanks. We all know those. And then the fourth type, which I consider a quick type, is our memory game. So we're actually going to look at the memory game one and fill in the blanks today. And so memory game is, I don't know if some persons are familiar with, there's a game like this on mobile devices where you have pairs of items in a grid. And those pairs of items in a grid, let me just give you a quick showing here. These pairs of items in a grid, you have to try to remember which goes with which pair. So if I'm looking at 2D and 3D shapes and matching them to their descriptive characteristics, and I click on rectangle, I can click here to see if I can find its pair, which I already did. Now, in the process of clicking, I may actually see where the definition for something is. So that means I have to remember where the definition is and actually find it later on. So it's a very fun thing, a nice little activity, an icebreaker activity, or even an end of lesson activity that can be done with students. Okay? Then in my level 2, I have those pieces of content that are rich and immersive. And those rich and immersive content, these 3 rich and immersive content, we have interactive books, which we'll look at today, interactive videos, which you will see an example of, and presentations. So these are rich and immersive. So an interactive book is a multi-page digital lesson. And I'll give you a walkthrough of that in a minute. Our interactive video is where you can take any YouTube video and you can add pause points, which we call hotspots. And wherever the video stops, students can actually interact with content at those hotspots, those pause points. So you can either answer a question, or they can read a piece of information, or some other item that you may want to have. So it transforms students passively watching videos into an active learning process. And then, of course, we have presentations where you can actually create a presentation, and then you can actually, if your Google account is connected, you can export that directly to Google Slides. And then the third level, forgive me if I'm moving quickly, is discovery and research, where you can actually support wider learning by giving students a little bit of discovery activity and research activity to do. So one of those is our image hotspot, which Kishon will look at with us in a while. And another one would be our video finder, where we can actually use this to find a particular video. So aside from me talking about these briefly and us going over 4 of them, you can feel very free to go on to creator.oecslearninghub.org, which I dropped in the chat earlier, and you can try out all of the others. You won't break it. You can try all of them, and you can, also give feedback as well as time goes on. So let's see if we can quickly go through a demo I'm going to start with two of the easier ones. I'm going to look at fill in the blanks, and then I'm going to look at the creation of a memory game. And then Kishon will look at our image hotspot with us. So our fill in the blanks is relatively easy to create. So I can go to my dashboard and I can click on fill in the blanks. Now, I must bring it to your attention that most, if not all of our content types actually have this AI generate button here, where we can actually generate content using artificial intelligence, which is built into our Learning Hub platform, and we can generate that content. Of course, how detailed your prompts are and the level of context you put into your prompts will determine, how much you get out of it. So I'm letting you know that we have this artificial intelligence content generation for most, if not all of our content types. But in order to give you a full understanding of it, I'm going to build this piece of content manually so that you're able to see what's involved in the process. And when you're comfortable, you can go ahead and use the AI generation feature. So for our fill in the blanks, we're going to give it a title. So I'm going to say paragraph. I'm going to call it paragraph power and revising Caribbean recounts. Okay, so we're looking at having our learners revising the organization and the language, the vocabulary and the grammar of some piece of writing. Now, in our description, we can put a description that persons who want to access and use our piece of content can actually know what that piece of content is about. So what I can say is this fill in the blanks allows students to allows students to revise the organization of a piece of writing. Okay, may not be very accurate, may not be very good, but just a description so that we know that we can put in a description. For the subject area, I'm going to choose English language. For the grade level, I'm going to, let's say, choose grade 5. And the grade 5 age range, I should know this, is 9 to 11. And then now you have the ability of selecting which aspects of the OHPC curriculum you want to pull from. Now you can select your subject, you can select your grade level, you can select your strand. And if you are very familiar with the OHPC, the OECS Harmonized Primary Curriculum, this would allow you to be able to choose the specific strands, the specific essential learning outcomes that you want. If, for instance, you're not entirely familiar with it and you just want the free range of building your own, okay, you can actually leave this unchecked and then you can move on. Now, for each piece of content, you will see this, where it says share as a public resource. Allow other teachers to discover and use this fill in the blanks activity on the shared resources page. Content will be automatically published when shared. So you are actually able to accept that by turning on this toggle. And that means that a while ago, when we saw all this content under shared resources, those persons had actually shared that with the general community. So by turning this on, you are agreeing to share your content with the general community. If you don't want to share it with the general community, and of course we all want to share our content, we will turn it on off. But if you want to share, you turn it on. Now, this part here is simple. For every blank space, so I'm going to begin typing. Last Saturday, I'm not going to type a lot because we don't have a lot of time. Our class visited the. Now, if I want to include a blank, the instructions actually tells you what to use. So you can type your text and use asterisk blank asterisk where you want the blanks to appear. Use the toolbar for formatting. So our class visited the asterisk blank asterisk. And as soon as I type, I put my closing asterisk, what do you see down here? It says blanks detected 1. So for every blank that we have, that blank will be automatically detected. Let me show you something else that's really cool for this one. If I remove the blank, let's say I remove the asterisk, and I highlight this because this is a rich text editor. So if I highlight blank and I turn it into an asterisk like this, you notice that it also recognizes that this blank is a blank. Now, for those of us who are a little more tech savvy than others and who are very heavy WhatsApp users, we know that if you want to italicize something on your phone, I think the code for that is asterisk the word and asterisk. So the plugin that we're using here actually allows for this italicization. Is that even a word? Italicization to turn your blank into that asterisk, that italicized blank into an actual blank. So I'm going to take a paragraph that I actually have pre-typed here with some blanks in it. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here. And we have about 7 blanks in them. So we notice that we have these blanks. Now, once you've crafted your paragraph with your asterisk blank asterisk or your italicized blank, you can then go and put in your words, the words that you want them to be able to put in. So you can add your words, okay, by typing in those words. So I can say local is the first word, and I can add another word here, overflowing, and I can add another one, which is mangoes, okay, and so on and so on. The other way I can actually do this is by using the word bank. So with the word bank, I can actually BANANAS, I can actually type words that I want the students to be able to drag and drop into our blank spaces. So bananas, dashing, observe, and descriptive. So these would be our words. And then now I can say whether I want it to auto-save the changes after every 2 seconds to protect our students' progress, whether we want to show hints, whether we want to allow the student to be able to retry, or if our words are case sensitive. Unless absolutely necessary, I would urge you to leave that off because we know that sometimes our students may not capitalize words. So unless it's absolutely necessary and we want the case sensitivity to be a concern, to be an issue, to be a feature, then we should leave that off. So once I'm finished with this, okay, my content will be automatically saved as I type. Oh, let me go back and put in my subject. That came off when I opened the Align to OECS Harmonized Primary Curriculum. So I'm going to go back and put that in grade 5. And my content is already published. Okay. And I can go back home to my fill in the blanks. So if I go down here to fill in the blanks, I will see this here, which is our revising a Caribbean recount. I think I'd already done this one before. But if I hit this little play button here to preview, Let me see if that's the right one. No, that's not the right one. This was one that I had already tried before. So let's look at this one. Here we go. So our students, if the only thing I had was for them to type, they would have written in their answers, or they could drag in their answers. So they could write in their answers, or they could drag in their answers. So if they wanted to drag in bananas here, they could do that. If they wanted to type in local here, they could do that. Okay, so that would be how we can go ahead and create our drag and drop. And as in the case of most of our content, you are also able to do one very cool thing, which is share to a classroom if you wish, okay? Or AI generate the content if you so wish. So that is our fill in the blanks, okay? Not drag and drop, fill in the blanks. So the next one I want to look at is our memory game. So let's take a quick look at our memory game and how we start this. So for our memory game, we have to do the typical thing. We're going to put in a title. So I'm going to use some content I quickly have here, percentages in real life. Okay, for mathematics. I'm going to say proportional reasoning. I'm going to put that there. My subject is mathematics. My grade is 5. Let's stick to 5. And okay. So let's move quickly into just creating some pairs. So students are going to use a variety of representations and models of percentages to solve real-world mathematical problems. So let's add a pair. So when I click add a pair, I have two sides. I have two options that's created. Remember, our memory game is made up of pairs. So my first pair, I'm going to put in 50%. And then you also realize you can also add an image if you want as well. Now, adding images is a feature that you will find in most of our content types. So if you choose to add an image, most times, you will see that you have the ability to add a URL. Sometimes, or you may have the ability to upload a file. I strongly urge you to use the URL option because, I mean, we all know what happens when you have to store a lot of images. Some of our phones are screaming right now because they're full of images. So once a device becomes, or once our servers, our databases become full of images that are uploaded, it becomes very heavy. So most times we urge teachers to find an image, okay, copy the image URL and paste it here. You'll see that in action when we look at our last content type today. So I put in 50% and I'm going to put in this here, okay? And what it says is half of the whole, if a bag of flour costs $10 and is 50% off, you pay $5, okay? So for each percentage part, I'm going to put in a real world example and an example of it. So I'm going to put in one more. I'm going to put in 25%. And for 25%, I'm going to say 1/4 of the whole. Okay. And then the third one I'm going to put, and you notice it's saving for me each change that I make, so I'm not losing my progress. I'm going to put in 10%, and I'm going to put in 1/10 of the whole. Control C, and I'm going to paste it here. So that would be just a very small memory game. We wanted to show the timer and we wanted to show the move counter. Okay, you will see what those are when we look at previewing the game. So you can also download this for some of our content as HTML. What does that mean? It means you can actually download the game, that the game can be played without internet access. So if I wanted, I could take this and I could share it with you. If I could upload that file directly in the webinar chat, I would, but I have to go through my Google Drive. And you can actually open it up on your PC and be able to access it offline if you wish. You notice it doesn't show a web URL up here. It's showing a file on my PC. So for many of our pieces of content, we can actually download them. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back home and let's take a preview of our memory game, which is percentages in real life. So we have these 6, okay, kind of uneven, but that's okay. And 1/4 of the whole, 25%. Okay, so 1/4 of the whole. Let me see if I can find its pair. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. All right, so that's it. 50%. Where did I see 50%? This is this one. So automatically. So the more items you put in a memory game is the more interesting it will obviously be. But I think you get the picture. You get the picture. Okay. So for our 2 content types that we've looked at so far, all right, which is our fill in the blanks and our memory games, these are particularly interesting and easy to generate. Now I have Keyshawn. Let me know if you're there and able. I have Keyshawn with us. Oh, you're there. Okay, great stuff. So we have Mr. Keyshawn Paul, one of our ICT gurus from Grenada, working with the Ministry of Education, who is going to come on and to look at our image hotspot content type with us before we jump right into the last content type where we look at the interactive book very quickly. All right, so Keyshawn, would you want to share your screen, right?
Yeah, yes, please.
All right, so let me stop sharing. Hold on. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing. And Keyshawn, you should be able to share now.
All right, thanks a lot. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Right ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. Once again, it's a privilege to be a part of the session and to be able to assist in imparting knowledge on the teachers that help our students move forward in life. All right, so I'm going to be quite brief, but also as articulate as possible. I'm going to focus a lot this evening on the image hotspots. As Kenan would have alluded to before, it's one of the interactive forms of content that we can use to make class a bit more interesting and exciting, that students can interact a bit more with the lesson itself. So once you're in on the content creator space or dashboard, you select the item under create new content called image hotspot. You can click on that, and it's going to bring up that space that's going to allow you to edit and kind of configure what the image hotspot is going to entail. A bit of a side note is that, as teachers, I'm pretty sure that we don't just wake up one morning and start joking things into our screen. There is going to be some kind of source you would select your items from. So for me, for example, I have, for example, a document that is going to kind of dictate what I'm going to put into that configuration space or that space to create that image hotspot. So it might be useful to create this beforehand, so it becomes a bit easier to fill out the items or the text boxes that are in the editing space. So can person see my Word document?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thanks. Right. So this it might not be as thorough and as detailed as the many very experienced teachers in the midst. So forgive me if I'm not as thorough as you are. I believe that you might be better. But this simple document contains the information that I can use to put into my hotspot. So it's easier to just copy from this across to the hotspot. So I'm going to show you one of the examples. Before I start, I should have shown you one of the examples I have of the image hotspot. I did one on organs and functions. Let me just press that play button so you can see. So a simple image hotspot here is to display the different organs and functions of the human body. As you can see, the image is present, and then there is some items, some number items along the image that I can click on and give an appreciation of what the organ is and a brief description of what the organ does or what its function is. All right. So if I scroll down a little bit more, I actually do also have some tiles or items below the image that I can also interact with. Once I click on them, again, the image is going to reveal to me that number and the description of that particular body function. All right, so there's two ways in which you can interact with, and as Clinton would have alluded to, you can share this via a link to your class or colleagues or even in the makerspace. Let me go back to the dashboard. Okay, so back in again on the hotspot, I'm going to click on it. I'm going to show you how I created this exact hotspot itself to make it a bit easier so you can relate. I'm going to click on the title. In my case, remember I already have a document that has information here, so I can just copy things across. You know, it's not that I'm being lazy, but I'm being prepared. I can copy things across, like the title, the description, kind of similar to what Clinton would have done before. So I can just copy these items across. So it makes it a bit easier to fill out that editing space. I'm going to stick to the script. I'm going to select science, and then I'm going to clear the grade level as grade 5. And hopefully Clinton was correct. I'm going to select 9011 for grade 5. And I want to kind of pause a little bit on the image URL for a second. So when you have to select the image URL, you'll have to go online and do a bit of a search to identify the kind of image that suits your image hotspot. I want to recommend that it should be clear, it should be large enough, and it should be identifiable, or components should be identifiable on the image by students. So when you go, you do your search, for example, you might go into the Google search and you might search for something like human organs in this case, and you pull up a few images. Now, what I want to recommend is that when you pull the image up, you click on the image you want to use. So in my case, so any image you click on is going to show up as a larger space on the right of the page. So when I click on an image, there's two ways you can do this. I recommend one. You right click on the image, first of all, and then you click on Open Image in a new tab. I think that's very useful or important for having the image show up in your editing space. So Open Image in New tab. And once you do that, the image is going to open in a new tab. Once it's there, you can either copy the link up here in the box, or you can right click and select Copy Image Link. Okay, so whatever image link you copy, I have my preset image links here already. So I can copy my image link. I already did my research and I found the image link I would like to have, and I'm going to copy it across in the makerspace. But like again, you can use image hotspot on a number of different things. So in my case, I use it for organs. You can use it to label a volcano. You can use it to label an insect. All of these are things that kids will interact with, and it makes it a bit more fun for the class. So I'm going to paste in the image link right here. And as you can see, the image shows up on the left, on the right in preview. I'm only going to do 2 hotspots because it's basically redundant for the sake of time. So I'm going to add a hotspot. So when I click on Add Hotspot, it is going to show up as default hotspot 1. But the title, I'm going to put the title in first of all. I'm going to label this one as stomach. I mean, I think at least 90% of us love our stomachs here. Food is a huge part of my life, so I cannot afford to leave stomach out. Yeah, I see some hearts and things, some loves this, so I figure we're on the same page. Right, so I'm going to put stomach here. I'm going to go back to my reference sheet and select the description for stomach here. And go back to and paste in my description. Okay, so right then and there, you can realize that the hotspot title changes to stomach after I put the title in. And I have my description here. And then the hotspot is there. However, you would have to hover over it. You can hold down on your left click mouse and move the hotspot around to where you want it to go, right? So I almost labeled the liver as stomach. I don't want to rearrange people's organs here. So let me go to over stomach and click on and rest my hotspot right over stomach. Okay, so you can do it like that, or you can click on it. Well, this is the best option. So you hover over, you bring you grab your hotspot, you put it over the item you want to put it on, and it would stay there. I'm just gonna do one more for some redundancy, and then we're gonna preview and see what it looks like. So add another hotspot again. This time I'm going to choose to select the liver. It's a bit big, so I'm going to copy the description from my reference document, and I'm going to put the title as liver to change the name at the top here. Okay, I'm going to paste in my description, and I think we're good here. So we kind of look at thing. I'm going to take for the well, actually fell right on liver, but I'm going to grab the two and make sure it's right over the liver itself. Hope and pray that is the liver. If that's the liver, let's respond yes in the chat, or otherwise put a thumbs up. Yeah, I really hope I'm doing this correctly. It's been a few years and I haven't been able to see my own organs, so I'm not sure where they are. So one of the things I want to also reiterate, as Clinton said, if you want to make sure that the public can see it, you can click on share as public resource so that it's highlighted and it's available in that shared space that we all can paste our resources. All right. So right now it's published. As you can see, I can unpublish it, but right now it's published. So it's saved automatically because by default, I have this on. So it's saved every 2 seconds. I'm going to go back out now and it should show up under my content. I'm going to go down for it. I believe it's the first one. Is this one right here? I'm going to click on play. And this is what it should look like. Okay, so if I click on the number 2 again, as I showed you the first time, it shows liver and a description of what the liver is. And the second item, I can exit out and I can click on stomach and it shows what stomach is. And again, as I said, you can reference the items down below here. They pop out as you click on the tile. Okay, so just one last point. Remember on the tile as Clinton showed, you can share, which you can copy the link to, so someone else can actually go receive the link and do or engage with the activity after the fact. And lastly, if you want to find it in shared resources, you can click on shared resource and you can search for, human organs. And right there, you can see both of them are shared and you can click on preview and use, and you can actually use this, copy to your content so it falls into your space and use it for your own purposes in your class. All right. Anybody has any questions?
Well, we'll take some questions in our Q&A. So
okay, great. So I think that's it from me, Clinton. I'll hand back over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Keyshawn. Well done. And you made it look very, very easy. And not only did he make it look very easy, but it really is just as easy as Keyshawn made it look. Especially if you are trying to generate this content, like I say, things that will make your your work in the classroom a little bit better. Now, I am aware of the time. Let's try to see if we could at least finish by maybe 7:20, 7:25. I know persons have fun things to do tonight in some of our countries, especially St. Lucia. We have lots of fun things going on tonight. So let's go into our final content type, and that would be our interactive book. Now, our interactive book is what I call a piece of rich content. And Kishan, if you can stop sharing, let me see if I can share mine. All right, so I think mine is showing up now. I am good. Okay, persons, you could see my screen. All right, so and something that occurred to me when Keyshawn came on showing his screen is the fact that if your eyes are really sensitive like mine, you can actually turn on and off your dark mode. So maybe you may not want, this bright white light of heaven shining in your eyes. You may actually want to make it a little darker. So you actually have the dark mode feature. Shout out to Mr. Emmanuel on this. So yes, so let us look at very quickly, very, very quickly, our interactive book. Now, remember, as I said, our interactive book is almost if you have a mini lesson. Like there are a number of items or you want the students to be able to do some sort of self-paced work. So you could put together a set of pages, media pages, that the student can actually go through from top to bottom. So let's say we want to create a interactive book for social studies, which is called Climate Change in the Caribbean. Okay, so we're looking at climate change in the Caribbean. Now, we can enter our book description. Students will learn about the effects of climate change in the Caribbean. Okay, to be, sir. Okay, so we could put in our subject, we can say social studies, we can choose our grade level, and let's just use grade 5 again. And then we can select our age range. Now, in terms of our pages, once you click on add page, you notice that there are 4 page types that you can add. You can add a content page, okay, which can hold general content. You can add a video page, which can hold videos. You can add a quiz page, which, as the name says, can hold a quiz, and you can add an image page. Now, we're not going to build all 4 types, okay, but we are going to start with a content page. So once I click on content page, one of the things you're going to see is that you're then faced with this wonderful rich text editor, which pops up all over our content creator. And we can give this page a title of what is climate change. Now, if you already have a blurb typed up, okay, as Keyshawn said earlier, and Tanil said earlier, and I inferred to earlier, you would already have your write-ups, you would already have, the things that you want to put into your content already planned. You can actually just go ahead and put in your content. So climate change refers to, and so on and so on and so on. So we have our nice little piece of write-up here. One of the things you can do is you can actually go in and put in an image into your page if you wish. It's not just text. Now remember, this is a rich text editor. So if there's anything you want to highlight or anything you want to make bold, you can actually bold or underline or turn something into a heading, etc., and so on and so on. These things you probably would have been familiar with if you use document processing software like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So if I wanted to add an image, I actually could place my pointer or my cursor wherever I wanted to, and I could click on this little icon here, which is kind of the universal icon for adding an image. And I can click on this, and again, I can either AI generate an image, okay, or I could select a URL, or I could upload. Let's go with the URL option. And what we want is just a picture of some kind of climate change activity in the Caribbean. So I'm going to go to my tab here, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to search for climate change in the Caribbean. Now, this is a bad search because I'm not being specific at all. And I'm going to search, and I'm going to go over to images. One of the things Keyshawn mentioned was how to get the links for the images that you want. Another thing I also want to point out is how to get the images that you should use as against the images that you shouldn't or aren't allowed to use. Now, many times we have to understand that not every image that you see in Google Images is an image that you can just take and slap into public-facing assets that you create online, because all of these images are coming from other people's websites. So some of those images, however, are what we call open for use or Creative Commons. So if you go over to Tools, when you go to the Image tab in Google, you can go down to Usage Rights, and you can actually select Creative Commons licenses. which would more often than not give you images that would not get you in trouble for using, okay, to put it simply. So although some of the more exciting images are no longer there, there are some images that we might be able to use. So I like this one, or in fact, this one is a bit, better. So I'm going to click on this image, and Kishan showed you one way, and another way would be to right-click on the image and copy image address. So when I go over to my content, I can paste the image address. Notice it ends with the type of image, JPEG or JPG, and I can insert my image. Now, you have the option of resizing or cropping your image in terms of width and height. Okay, I'm going to skip that for now. Okay, and my image comes in here nice and big and bold. So the other cool thing about an interactive book is the ability for you to add narration. We know that some students are, auditory learners and they like to hear things. So we can actually go ahead and we can record some of what we want the students to interact with. So they actually see the image and then the other channel of their brain can hear. So it goes a little something like, if I click here, I'm going to allow it. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns across the Earth. Since the 1800s, human activities have been the main driver. So when I stop, I think you might be able to hear it, I'm not sure. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature. So that allows you to be able to, I don't know if you heard it, maybe you did, I'm not sure. Yes, you did. Okay, so that means that you can actually put your own teacher voice to the content. And so whereas, students who may actually just want to hear rather than read it can actually do that. Another thing that you can encounter with your pages is something else that I'm going to show in a minute by adding another page, and I am going to add another content page. In fact, this time I'm going to add a quiz page. So I can add a quiz page, and for my quiz page, I'm going to say, test yourself. And I can go on and add some multiple choice questions. Now I can add multiple choice or true or false or fill in the blanks question. Let's just add one multiple choice question. So the question I'm going to put in is, which of the following is not a direct effect of climate change in the Caribbean? So I'm going to put in stronger hurricanes. My other option here is going to be rising sea levels. And my other option here is going to be more fertile farmland. Okay, so these might be the three. So I think the answer might be this one, more fertile farmland. Okay, I'm going to allow retries. I'm not going to put in a time limit because it's not a test. And I can then move along. So one of the cool things about the content the content creator is that you can actually add other pieces of content that you've created into your interactive books. So say, for instance, I have an interactive video that I have already created. Now, I don't think I have one on climate change, but I should have something, an interactive video. Okay, this one is not on climate change, but just for the effect, bear with me, just for the effect, I'm going to include it on my page, the first page that I created. Now you can toggle between pages by simply clicking on the name of the page here. So you notice that I can toggle between those pages. I can also shift the pages up or down in order while I'm editing. So of course, I don't want to test yourself before that page. And once I am done, someone asked a question earlier, I can download this content as something that my students can view offline without even having an account on, without even having an account. So, okay, I hope I think I did not save my quiz questions. I know it. I keep doing that every time. So let me just go back and put in my quiz question because I keep not saving it. And I'm just going to put this in here. I think it was stronger hurricanes. The other one was rising sea levels. And I think the third one we had was more fertile farm land, which was the answer. Okay. And I need to save my quiz page. Okay, so that one in particular, you need to make sure that you save that. And if you have an image to add, you can also add an image again. So going back here, did I embed any content? My interactive content was not embedded. Let me go back and embed it. Okay. All right. Okay. No, I don't think that's where I embedded the interactive content. But in any case, so yes. So now when I go back home and I go to my content, interactive books, where are you? And I preview this, okay? We have this here for climate change. What is climate change? This is page 1. You see your table of contents on the side. And we also have this embedded content that I created here, okay? Now, the interactive video is really cool because when students are viewing the interactive video, they're actually able to get to a hotspot in the video. And when they get to that hotspot, some sort of information pops up. They can continue, and maybe if they get to another hotspot, you could actually have some questions in that hotspot, which actually pops up. Now, I know we didn't go through the interactive video option in what we looked at tonight, but I'm going to provide for you a full document, a user manual that will allow you to walk through and use any of the pieces of content creation pieces that, those various content creation tools or types, sorry, that we have. So in the chat, I'm going to go into my Google Drive. I'm going to go into my Google Drive, and then I'm going to share with you. Don't know why it's asking me to sign back in, but security is security. And I'm going to share with you 2 documents, a content creation menu, and I'm also going to share with you where did it go to? Okay, and I'm also going to share with you our user manual. Now, from time to time, we may update some features and we would need to update the user manual, but rest assured, the user manual will always be made available in an updated fashion through the OECS Learning Hub and also through videos which you'll be able to peruse. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we just have one more piece of intervention or engagement for tonight. We had the pleasure of, I think we have the pleasure of having with us 2 individuals who have created content because I mean, hearing us talk about it is one thing. We can go on and on about it as much as we want to, but it's always good to get the real perspective from teachers who actually have been able to use the content creator to create pieces of content. Now, I hope they're still in the room. I know that we're some several minutes over our 1 hour time. Hopefully, this has proven very worthwhile to you. But we have in the room, I think, Tishana Reed Debrio from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and also Mrs. Janine, I think, Gaston Leo from St. Lucia. And very quickly, within 2 minutes, they're going to just give you um, a brief explanation of a piece of content that they've built each on the content creator, just to let you see that, you know, it's very usable and the experience has been good for them. So let me see how we can make this work. Let me go into my participants list. And I think we'll call Tishana first. Tishana, I see you. I'm going to allow you to talk. Can you speak so we could hear you?
Good night.
Hey, all right. Good night to you, ma'am. Let me pull your piece of content up on screen very quickly so that I don't think you would be able to share. Is this one yours? Yes, it is. And wow, I have so many tabs open. It is crazy. There we go. All right. So this is Tishana's piece of content. Tishana, you're going to guide my hand as you explain what it is you have built. You have the floor.
Good night again. As Mr. Bissett said, my name is Tishanari Dabro from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I created an image hotspot to use within your social studies class. So it is on the Caribbean geography. So it would really be used, well, I am using it for social studies purposes when dealing with the indigenous people, because I realized that yes, the students have to learn that they settled in the Greater Antilles, the Lesser Antilles. However, they do not know the island groupings and the islands that form these groupings. So for this image hotspot, when Mr. Bissett clicks on number one, which is orange, and it would be called, that grouping is the Greater Antilles, the information box would pop up stating the countries that make up the Greater Antilles. So you have Cuba, Jamaica, the island of Hispaniola. Now, you would also see some smaller letters that should be emojis. So also it will show you the island's flags so that students will be able to also see the flags and associate them with the country. If he clicks on number two, again, Leeward Antilles, it's highlighted in blue. Students will be able to associate that grouping with islands such as St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, and Nevis. And it would be repeated for all of the colors from number six, number four, number three, and number five. And it can be used for other groupings as well, other topics. So if not dealing with indigenous persons, if you are dealing with teaching about the Caribbean groupings, it would also come in handy so that students learn what the groupings are, the names of the countries that make it up, and also it can be used with regards to when you're teaching cardinal direction. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Tishana. And just to give my disclaimer, so the inclusion of emojis was something we actually didn't include in our editor for putting in those hotspots, but Tishana was able to find a creative way around it by getting her emojis into the editing space. However, What we'll have to do is to ensure that that carries over into the preview so that even if, because right now I'm sure Tishana would see in her editing space her flags showing up, but on the preview for the student, the flags aren't showing up. So that's something we will need to allow to happen going through. Now, finally, we have Mrs. Gaston Leo from St. Lucia. Let me see if she is there, allowed to talk. Can you please just give us a mic check so we know you're there, Genevieve?
Nice. Can everyone hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you. Let me pull your content up on screen. Quite an amazing piece of content it was. Oops, hold on. Now, there was a little issue I was having earlier opening your content. I'm not sure if the link was active. So just let me find it. Let me find it for you. Why is it not showing? Okay, what is the name of it again, Genevieve?
A guide to descriptive writing.
A guide. There we go. Yes, a guide to descriptive writing. Okay, you have the floor. Guide my hands as we go along.
Okay, so basically I did my interactive book as a guide to assist students in grade 5 and maybe grade 6 to help them with descriptive writing. I know a lot of persons who did the interactive book, they did it as an interactive storybook, but I prefer to do mine as a guide to help students learn how to do descriptive writing, or the classroom teacher can use it as a form of revision for students in grade 5 and above. So first off, we start off with a short video. It's a YouTube video. And in the instructions, it says, take a look at this video, listen attentively, and take down your notes. So it's a short introduction into descriptive writing. So the students just have to click the button and then they play the video. It is not very long. It is only 2 minutes and 42 seconds. I chose it because I didn't want the lesson to be too lengthy. Next, on the second page, what is descriptive writing? Here we have the description. Descriptive writing is a type of writing that helps the reader create a clear picture in the mind. And it also gives us some more details as to what descriptive writing is. And it also gives them an example. So instead of saying the garden was nice, so a writer might say the colorful garden was filled with bright flowers, buzzing bees, etc. So after they are done watching the introduction, we are now going into the lesson step by step. So here I put in on the third page the 5 senses that we are supposed to use when doing a descriptive piece. So I said that good writers use the 5 senses, we listed them. And I also put in the little emojis next to them. So students will be able to, those who are not able to read, at least they'll be able to know what the senses are. And we have a drag and drop activity. So they read on the left-hand side and they drag it to the drop zone on the right-hand side. As so is doing. And then, yes, you get your results right away. So next, we go on to the next stage of descriptive writing. This is where you add your adjectives. And to the top, a brief explanation as to what adjectives are and why we add them, because it makes our writing more interesting. And below there is another activity where the students will fill in the blanks. So we have the plain sentence, and we also have the sentence where they are supposed to drag and drop. So first, for example, the first sentence, we have it here, and so it's already showing you how exactly it has to be done. You go to the right-hand side, you select your word, and you drag it onto the left-hand side to fill in the blanks. So students get an example whilst they are going through the interactive book. And afterwards, you are able to check your answers. It will inform you of which answers are correct and which ones are incorrect. So here you can see which ones were correct and which ones were incorrect to be put. We continue with our interactive book. Here we are informing the students that they must show, don't tell. So we are going deeper into descriptive writing, sorry. So good writers don't just tell how something is, they show using details. And then in that short paragraph, we go into detail as to how we expect them to show and don't tell. So for example, instead of writing she was scared, you can say her hands trembled and her heart raced as she heard footsteps behind her. So we continue on to the next page where the students are supposed to describe a place. Now, most times I know for the upper grades, they give the students a picture and they are supposed to write an essay about the picture. And I chose to do a picture within our cultural context. So for example, here we have an image hotspot like Miss did previously. And when the students drag over the different numbers, they are going to see how they can use the 5 senses in descriptive writing. So, for example, number 3, the use of smell, the smell of the ripe mangoes fill the air. If they drag over number 1, the use of sight, the students can say the market was full of bright fruits and vegetables. So this is an image hotspot where they are actually able to learn how to use their 5 senses in writing and an example of how to do it. Further, we go on to figurative language, informing the students of the different figurative languages that they can use in their writing. And here we have another activity where they are going to practice the use of similes and metaphors. And it also gives them the definition of what a simile is, what a metaphor is, and the activity below just for practice. And now they are going to build a paragraph. So all what we have learned in the previous pages, we are going to build a paragraph now. So you inform them that when you are writing a paragraph, you start off with your topic sentence, you add your supporting details, and you do your closing sentences. It's just a brief explanation as to how to write a paragraph. And next, on to page 9, they are going to practice. So here we have a photo, and the instruction says you are now going to practice. Write 4 to 5 sentences on your notebooks using 2 senses and 2 adjectives. It is not anything new to them. We have already dealt with the senses and adjectives previously. And for the final challenge here, the students are supposed to use the poster above as a reference guide. So the poster has a 5-day itinerary as to what you can do in St. Lucia. Now I chose that one because there are students in the OECS who are not St. Lucians and they will not know what exactly can be done in St. Lucia. So I'm giving them options. There are different options of activities you can do on different days. So the students are supposed to study the 5-day itinerary and they are going to choose just one day. And in their paragraph, they are going to ensure that it has the following: the uses of senses that we have already learned about, the uses of adjectives, the uses of figurative language. So all what we have gone through throughout the guide, this is your final challenge to write a short paragraph with all of the above. And finally, we have our little poster informing the students that great writers paint pictures with words. Keep practicing. You are now a descriptive writer. So this is the interactive book I did during the workshop. Thank you.
Awesome. Wow. I am stunned with how much detail went into this. This is really, really good. And I'm sure most persons here would feel the same, that both of our testimonials tonight were really impressive, and we can definitely see real examples of the kind of content that can be created on the OECS H5P Content Creator. So thank you both of you for sharing. And now we will move quickly. Wow, look at the time when you're having fun. We will move quickly into our Q&A. So how we're going to do this, let me just share for persons who are looking for the last piece of content, I'm going to drop it in the chat. This is Geneviève's content, and I also posted Tishana's own. So I'm going to go over to the attendees to look for the hands that are up first of all. So you may raise your hand if you have a question. I know time is up on us, so let's see. I've been seeing Ebony's hand for the longest while. Ebony, is that a legacy hand or is that a question you had? Okay, so Ebony has put her hand down. So let's go over to the Q&A section to look for any questions that may exist. Now, someone asked, is this somewhat like an EMIS system? I wouldn't say that it is an EMIS system. It's a complete classroom environment. An EMIS would more or less be a whole school, whole system approach to collecting data on your education environment, which is, you know, things like attendance. We're looking at grading. We're looking at, you know, contact information. So, you know, all of those things would be involved in an EMIS. I wouldn't call this an EMIS. I don't think this would be an EMIS, but it can be a little micro EMIS or a little micro environment for your classroom when you want to easily keep track of who's engaging with your content, what are the levels of engagement, who's understanding the content, who's not understanding the content. So all of this is available. As far as going on to use it as an EMIS, I would not say that it's an EMIS at this point. Okay. And then some person said that they had to leave, which is totally understandable. Okay, so I think we covered quite a bit tonight in terms of our content creator. I just want to say that the content creator is definitely available for everyone to use. We encourage you to use all of our tools. The tools are there for, you know, all teachers to be able to create contextual, relevant content for their classrooms in the region. You notice that the content that was created and that was shown by our testimonials tonight was content that was created, which was very contextual to our environment. So our students will be seeing things that are familiar to them. I really want to take the time to thank all of my co-panelists tonight who were able to contribute. You know, Tanil, Kishon, thank you so much. We have Jonelle, who's definitely there with us listening on. We have Royston, who was with us. I think he's still there. I'm not sure. He may have had to leave. I want to thank everyone who's contributed to making these first 3 webinars a success. Before we leave, and I also want to thank you for definitely sticking with us and joining us, and you know, even on a Thursday night, coming up and being part of this experience to learn something new and to get a handle on a new tool. Before, you know, one of the things we always like to do with our webinars is to leave you with a little bit of an exit ticket, something that you can, you know, a little bit of homework so that you can put some thought into it. And we always have our little challenges, our little exit challenge activity, where this one asks you to select one H5P content maker content type available via the OECS Learning Hub. Design and develop a content resource using your selected H5P tool. Integrate the resource into a classroom. Test it out. See how your students relate to it. and then you can share the ways the resource enhance your lesson. I will on the webinar page that is available be sharing an area for you guys to be able to go in and to type your contributions, your reflections. So for those who don't know, it's at oecslearninghub.org/webinar. So if you go to that page, that is the page where you will be getting an area for you to share your contributions. But essentially, if you're thinking ahead, this challenge is actually asking you to go on and create content. So create content, plan your content using our planning document. Plan your content, take your content and also share it, make it available for others. I see two questions here. Mention was made of the availability of the content creator manual. Yes. If you go to that page that I just posted in the chat, oecslearninghub.org/webinar, you will notice that there's a recording for the first two webinars. So the recording for this webinar will also be made available on that page as soon as it's processed. Tomorrow is a holiday over here in St. Lucia, so most likely by Monday we should have that up for you. And then the link to the descriptive writing. Okay. If the link to the descriptive writing is not opening for you, what you can do, if you're on the platform, let me just show you right quick. If you're on the platform, where's the content disappearing to? I hope Tishana didn't remove her content. If you go over to shared resources, you can search for, I do think it was called, you can search for guide to descriptive, whoopsie. Is that what it was called, Genevieve? Guide to descriptive writing?
A guide to descriptive writing.
No, it should show up whether, okay. Oh, wait, but was it shared as a public resource? I'm not sure whether it was. Did you share it as a public resource?
No, it wasn't, so I'll have to do that now.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I think persons in the room are really interested in having it available for them to be able to use. So you have a winner. You have a winner. So you can go into the edit area and just toggle on your share as a resource so that persons are able to search for it under shared resources, a guide to descriptive writing, and they will be able to use it in their lessons. Okay. And for Tishana as well, Tishana says hers is still up. So let's just do a quick check before we leave. Yes, it is. So Tishana's link definitely works. Geneviève's own, yeah, she's going to share it as a public resource so that you can search for it. A guide to descriptive writing. And Tishana says there are others that she has created. So, yeah, you can definitely check them out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stick a pin in it right here. It has been an awesome evening, way better than I intended. The numbers were a little lower than expected tonight, but that's understandable considering we had a little bit of a postponement. And I know there are other things happening tonight. I know there were some other webinars going on which were related to things that the OECS Commission, the EDMU is related to, such as the Google stuff, etc. So that's understandable. But the recording is available for your peers and for you. We have our next webinar coming up on, I think it is May 19th. Yeah, OECS Learning Hub. Let me just make sure. Yes, it is on the 19th of May, where we talk about collaborative work and sharing. In particular, we're looking at the communities feature. And then we're not going to use the whole session to talk about the communities feature. We're most likely going to look at sharing some best practices. So, that should be an interesting way for us to end our 4-part series. I really thank you guys for the success of this, and I wish you all a pleasant evening. And if there's nothing else on the table, we shall call it a night. Thank you so much for attending, and see you again next time.